Marilyn, Alauria, and welcome to Who Can It Be Now, the podcast. Today's episode is an interview with my good friend Tracy Crossley. You're really going to enjoy this interview. She is a phenomenal person and she does some really great work. And I feel like you're going to gain a lot out of our time together. But before we go into the interview, I wanted to share a tidbit of information with you because I always like to share something before an interview, just so I can get a little personal time with you. It's a little selfish time I have. So right now I'm doing the week-long celebration that you've heard me talk about in the other podcasts. And it's been really fun and phenomenal. I hope you join us in the next one that we do, where we're getting together and I'm teaching them about guides and higher self and how to see and feel your guide, understand the symbols. It's a great introduction to the work. It's more than an introduction because I give a lot and the community is so phenomenal that they give a lot and we're just having an incredible celebration. But one of the questions that came up I thought was really good that I wanted to share the question and the answer with all of you. The question was around guides and their names. So somebody was struggling with the name of their guide and they were just struggling with it, and I decided, well, let me teach something here, so I'm going to share it with you. Guides don't care about names. They really don't. We know everything in relationship with people by names. We use names, and that name, when we say that name, has an energetic feeling to it. So if you think about it, when you say dad or mom, you know, if it's your own dad or mom, you have, or whatever you call them, you have an energy response. You have an emotional response to that name. Think about certain people in your life, whether it's your siblings or if you had a bad experience with someone, and that name then holds a bad memory for you. So guides know that we know people through their names. Like when we call them, we're calling them by a name, our friends. Let's talk about our friends. And then we just have a whole feeling that comes up with that name when we're speaking to that particular person. And then if we meet someone like down the line who's got a name, like a best friend of ours, we're like, oh, you know, you just feel really like a kindred spirit. Or say you meet somebody with your own name, right? There's not a lot of Marilyns around. So when I meet somebody with the name Marilyn, I'm like, oh, hi. And you all of a sudden have this like familiar connection because we have a similar name. So guides understand that we work this way. So they're like, okay, well, let's use names then, because when you call us in, you'll know our energy by that name. But they don't necessarily they don't always give you a name. You can choose the name. It doesn't matter. So with my guides, they all did give me a name. And the names, I don't really share the names of my guides because it's a very intimate relationship for me. It's very personal to me. But with that name, when I call them in, because I know exactly where they stand, and that name, as soon as I say that name, they come in and they stand in that particular location. I'm actually doing it right now with my main guide. And that just creates this umbilical cord of energy between the two of us. So it's almost like whatever you call your husband or you call your child, or there's like this line of energy that goes between you and that person. That's what you create with your guide by just saying their name and then calling them in. And it's almost like that relationship is established, right, in that particular energy exchange, and then the relationship grows. It's like guides, your relationship with guides is like any relationship. It grows, it expands, it changes. With your guides, it's always loving, it's always unconditional, it's incredible experience. So they will give you a name. Sometimes they won't give you a name, and you just pick a name, and it doesn't matter. They don't care. But associate that name with them and call them in, have them stand in the same place every time you call that name in, and you will start establishing a deep-rooted connection with your guide. So I will do a podcast around guides and teach a little bit more about it since it is my platform of expertise. And I will talk about some of these things that came up in the celebration, which I thought were really amazing as I see people get introduced to their guides, learn how their energy is and learn how to work with them. It really allows me to have a beginning mindset again and remember, oh yeah, this is what people's experience is like. Okay, now let's take this a step further and teach this even more. And I just love when people bring me questions about this stuff because my guides are teaching guides. They love teaching this stuff and they just jump all this information into me. And it's just so incredible to be able to give all that information to you. And we're not all the same, right? There's a list of, I don't even like calling them rules, but they're like rules for the game, right? Let's play this game of guides, communicating with your guides. Okay, here's a list of rules. Try them on for size, see how it feels, and play with it. But what I love about the work that I do with my guides is we meet you on your path. And if something doesn't resonate with you, then you get to shift it and change it based on your own experiences. I want to give you one more example that I thought was phenomenal. So we play with symbols, and I teach people how to, and I've shared this on this podcast, the symbolic language of your soul, how to come up with a symbol. When I come up with a symbol, come up with a meaning for it. So we played with a couple of symbols, and one of the symbols was eagle. So what does eagle mean to you, right? And you will usually have a strong memory of it, or you will have a feeling towards it, and you will be able to describe what it is right away. So just do it right now. Like, what is an eagle to you? And when I did this in the group, a lot of people said freedom, which is unusual because I will do this a lot when I'm teaching. I'll do butterflies or candles or owl, and people will have different meanings for those particular things. But with eagle, I saw a lot of freedom. A lot of people had the word freedom to describe eagle. And that's not unusual, right? Because if you're especially in the United States, it's a, I can't find the words, so just find them yourself. I'm just going to tell you that today. I'm so tired. So whatever, the eagle and freedom, and why the eagle means freedom. You all know why, or maybe you don't, doesn't matter. It meant freedom to a lot of people in the group. But what I loved about that is right away my guide said, yeah, but freedom means something different to each and every one of you. And that resonated so much with them. And one woman was like, I'm so glad you said that, because you negate like what you know, like what that symbol means to you. And then when you start recognizing, wait, eagles mean freedom, if they mean freedom to you, and freedom is something different to me than it is to you, then you start getting into the symbolic language of your soul. And when your guides start giving you symbols, you really start understanding what they're communicating intimately to you. Not to Joe or Sally or Frank, to you, unless those are your names, Joe, Sally, and Frank. Then they're communicating that intimately to you, Joe, Sally, and Frank. Eagles, for me, I wouldn't have said freedom. I have a very strong memory of eagles. I was at a retreat in Ojai, California. I went to Ojai. I heard how great Ojai is. It was the first time I ever went to Ojai, and they were like, everybody's like, you got to go to Ojai. It's so amazing. Everybody's so spiritual. It's on a vortex. Honestly, everybody just seemed really stoned to me the first time I went there. I went into a store and I remember thinking, oh wow, you're just really all stoned. And that was my experience in the beginning. It was kind of a weird experience. I've been to Ojai since, and I definitely think Ojai is beautiful, so I'm not putting down Ojai. But my first experience of it was like, what is this? But what was happening to me is I was really in the crux of my spiritual awakening and my mediumship skills and my psychic abilities, and it was very unnerving. And I went to this retreat center, and I rented out this little place to sleep in this retreat center. And I just remember being in the bedroom and feeling like something was outside my window constantly. And I wasn't sure if it was a person. And I was scared. Like, it could have been a deceased person at that point, or it could have been somebody physically from the retreat center. It was just very uncomfortable for me. But I was so scared when I first started opening up to my abilities that I just was so confused. I remember sleeping with the lights on. I couldn't sleep. I had my little dachshund dog at that time, Emmy, who's no longer with me in the physical. And I was just petrified. And I remember being there like, what the heck is going on? And so not being able to handle my emotions with my psychic gifts and being really uncomfortable with everything. And I didn't know what I was going to do with all this stuff that was opening up to me. And I remember journaling and looking out the window and seeing an eagle. And I just knew something big and miraculous was happening. Like, it gave me that confidence of knowing, wow, something is amazing is about to happen. And towards the end of that trip, I was waiting for a call from a particular healer that I was told could help with what I was doing and what I was going through. And we connected when I was on that trip, and we had this conversation. And when I hung up that phone, I felt like, I felt a relief. Like, I have someone I can work with, somebody who can help me, somebody who could help me understand all these experiences that I'm having and help me ground into them and help me grow into them and not feel like I'm coming apart at the seams. And I just remember feeling more peaceful and like I was stepping out into a whole other level of my life. And I left that retreat center and I did start working with her and some other people, and my whole world opened up. And that eagle really showed me that it was powerful. It was super, super powerful what I was about to enter. I didn't know. I had no clue that I was going to be doing what I'm doing today. I had no clue that I was going to get so much satisfaction out of teaching people to communicate with their guides, believe in their dreams, and learn how to use all these gifts that are out there. And let me tell you something. Our gifts aren't just psychic. It's not only clairvoyance and clairaudience and claircognizance and all those amazing gifts. Our gifts are other things too, like not only writing and drawing. Like I have a gift of bringing community together. I'm incredibly gifted at it. I'm always doing it wherever I am. I'm organizing people and creating opportunities. I just do it naturally. So in my own businesses, Membership for Your Soul and Soul Finder Academy, I've created very safe communities where people really flourish and grow and feel safe. That's really important to me. So that's a gift, right? You may have a gift where you're networking really good or building relationships, or you may have a gift at folding clothes. I saw this woman's YouTube channel and she has folding clothes, and I can't remember who it was. I saw how I even saw it, but I was like, wow, she really has a whole business doing this, and that's incredible. So open up the brackets to your gifts and start recognizing what you're good at and start thinking about what you can be doing with these gifts and how you could be exploring them further, and start connecting with your guides more and more. All right, so enjoy this interview, and I will talk to you next week. And remember, rate, subscribe, and share this podcast. I'd love to see my ratings go up on Apple Podcasts. So I know a bunch of you following me. If you can go onto Apple Podcasts and rate it with a 5-star review, that would be great. And that's it. Thank you so much. I'm getting such great feedback. And again, you can email us at care@Marilyn. Nope, don't do that one. Like, you know what? I think I have to go down to one email. info@whocanitbenowpodcast.com. info@whocanitbenowpodcast.com. Let me know what you want to learn. Let me know what you want to talk about. Let me know how I can help you and guide you further. Thank you so much, and enjoy this interview with Tracy. I know you're going to love it. Have a great day or night whenever you're listening to this. Bye. Hi, everyone. Yay. Everybody say hi to Tracy.
Hello. Hi. Hi, guys.
Fix my hair. So we are very low key here, but I'm going to tell you all about Tracy because I'm excited to have this conversation. Tracy and I know each other from our mastermind group, and she does some really, really fascinating work, and I'm actually going to learn along with you guys. So those are always my favorite guests when I learn along with you. And what we're talking about today is stop accepting the breadcrumbs in your relationship, which freaking is hilarious. Tracy. So I want to tell you about Tracy, and we're probably, Tracy, as everybody, they know this is a very casual group. She's given us questions, so I'm going to go there, but I usually go off the questions, and I know you're fine with that too. Tracy Crossley, is that how you say your last name?
Yeah, that's how you say it. Mm-hmm.
Great. Is a behavioral relationship expert whose work centers on emotional connection with ourselves and others. She helps people get out of their head to uncover the belief system that drives their behavior, then guides them through emotionally driven actions to break the patterns that keep them stuck. Such a great topic. As someone who struggled with insecure attachment issues for most of her life, Tracy shares her experiences with equal parts empathy and humor. She's been there and knows how much is available to those who refuse to settle. The work she does leads to self-acceptance, emotional freedom, and more authentic life. Hello, Tracy. Say hi.
Hey there. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me, Marilyn.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited. And I have some questions right off the bat before we talk about breadcrumbs in your relationship. I need to know, because I hear this word a lot, this attachment thing, and I've heard it from you. Can you explain to me what insecure attachment is?
Yes.
And to all of us?
Yeah, absolutely. So there is something called attachment theory. It's a psychological theory that was developed by a psychologist named John Bowlby. I believe it was in the late 60s, if I remember right. And what it was talking about how as babies, we attach to our parents. We attach to them for love. We attach to them, obviously, because they're our source of food and shelter, right? So what happens is when you have inconsistent parenting, where your parents didn't have to be abusive, they didn't have to be horrible human beings, but it's where a parent was inconsistent in how they cared for you. And so each child, depending on your personality, you would react differently. So for some, that made them anxiously cling. For others, they may feel those same emotions but avoid. And for others, they may have gone back and forth, and others might have been ambivalent. So there's different types of styles, like there's ambivalent, there's disorganized fearful, there's anxious avoidant, and there's anxious and plain old avoidant. And I'm sure some other labels there, but that's basically how it developed. And it's important because it's a survival mechanism that we have, because otherwise we wouldn't survive if we didn't attach to our initial caregivers.
Got it. So how did you get involved in it and then become an expert in this field?
Well, I was a coach, and I was a coach who had a lot of, let's say, dysfunctional relationships. And so and I was always a person who was on the let me get to self-empowerment. I was always on that self-help trail. And what happened was I was finding that I would get into these relationships that were totally dysfunctional, where I could be anxious and the other one avoidant, meaning, oh, what happened? You fell off the face of the earth for a week or 2 weeks. And, then I would be chasing after them. Or I'd be in the opposite place because I was an anxious avoidant, where I would be avoiding relationships and single forever. And so for me, I was very self-sufficient and I was always very independent, which most people that are avoidants are. And so what I found was I was in this relationship and I could not feel any better. Like, I had gone to therapy, I did all these things, and I wasn't feeling any better. I felt this anxiety, and this relationship that I'm talking about was on and off, where he would show up, he'd disappear, he'd show up, or I'd be going, get out of my life. I don't want to deal with you. But the problem was, and this is one of the last times it happened, I noticed that no matter how long this person had been gone and how I thought maybe I was getting over it, I really wasn't getting over it, because he'd show back up and I'd have those same feelings again. And I thought, oh, I'm not going to live this way, right? I'm not going to live with somebody else basically controlling my emotional state. And so I really did a deep dive into helping myself and what that meant. And that's pretty much how, being a coach and then this happening sort of just fit together. And it seemed like that's what ended up attracting people to me, because I started putting out blog posts, and then I wrote for Elephant Journal and Huffington Post, and I was sharing my stories and sharing how I was helping people who had the same issues.
And you're married, right?
Yes, I got remarried. So I was married once before, many years ago, and I got remarried in 2018. And and a totally different relationship, like completely different.
Wow, I didn't realize it was a second marriage, because you guys feel like, whenever Tracy talks about him, we were accountability partners too in RRI, another program we were in. And it just feels like it's a very long, beautiful relationship. That's what I mean by it. Like, it feels like it's very deep and it's been around for a long time.
Yeah, it has that feeling to it because it's functional.
Love that.
I have functional relationships before. They were opposite. Yes.
Yeah, I relate to a lot of what you're saying. So I love this conversation. So now let's get into the topic of, well, first, what I would really like you to do, Tracy, is tell people the stuff that you do, even though everything, your website and everything goes out with them, goes out to everybody, and then it lives on our site. I still want people to know you do a podcast. I want them to hear about a little bit about your business, because a lot of people are running businesses. And I think that really is beneficial to them to hear what kind of business you created now based on your own life experience.
Oh, I think that's awesome. I'm glad to hear that people like that are listening, because so when I started the business, obviously I was doing one-on-one coaching with people, and I also did psychic readings because I'm psychic.
That's right. I forget about that part, because she hides that. So she's also a psychic and a medium.
Yes, and I have that actually on a separate website. So and a lot of it's just by referral, because I don't really publicize it. I used to, but what I found was the people that were showing up for readings really needed coaching. And so that's why I separated the two. So anyway, so I started off as a one-on-one coach and doing readings, and then it progressed, and it took a long time. I mean, I've had this business 12 and a half years. And at one point, I think it was like 5-6 years ago, I really started to incorporate more of a team. And, like I had a marketing person and brought in an assistant, and I've consistently had an assistant ever since then. And that's around when I hit six figures with my business. And so going forward to now, so my business is, I've had a podcast for 5 years, and it's great because people really resonate with the information. Like I have three different topics that I talk about, and they're on different days. So every Tuesday I have one that's specifically about attachment and attachment issues. I have my Friday podcast, which is really talking about all sorts of emotional issues in terms of the obstacles we place in front of ourselves to get anywhere. And then I also do an interview series where that comes out every couple of weeks, and I interview different experts in how they've moved on in their lives. So that's been super popular. In fact, it was probably more popular than my writing was. And so I get a lot of clients that come through that. I also have a group program. It's called Mastery, and it's a great program because, it brings people in who really are, hey, I've done all this work and I still feel this way. And so, it's been awesome because I also have a team of coaches. At this point, I've trained 9 people, and I have 6 of them working in the business with me. And so they also help out with coaching, and they take on clients one-on-one as well. And so really it's been that, it's just grown so much, especially in the last 2 years, I'd say. Like it just keeps growing, growing, growing. And so I'm happy about that, of course, but with that comes its challenges too.
Right. Yeah, right. Totally. What's the name of your podcast, honey?
You can find it. It's called Deal With It.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. Got to deal with that emotional baggage.
Love that. Okay. So now let's talk about the breadcrumb relationship. What is a breadcrumb relationship?
I know that's such a funny term, but it really,
it's actually perfect.
Well, it is funny because I used to tell people, don't you want the whole loaf of bread? Why are you settling for breadcrumbs? Yes. So breadcrumbing, there's a couple of ways that it's used. Basically, if you're in a relationship and you look at the amount of attention and the amount of, let's say, support you get, you're settling for breadcrumbs. Maybe your partner's not really around. Maybe your partner is dismissive of your needs. Whatever it happens to be, you're just settling for so little. If you're on the other spectrum, which I think is difficult because I think there's a lot of people out there that fit this, but breadcrumb dating, it's where you meet somebody, you feel like, oh my gosh, this person, I think they're awesome. You're having maybe that little intensity, that chemistry, and you're thinking this is great. And you think they think that too. And maybe they do for a week or two or however long, it doesn't even matter the length of time. What starts to happen though is they go from showing up to slowly disappearing, slowly fading out, like ghosting, except that they show back up at some point, like nothing happened. And you're hooked into it because you thought this was going to be something great. And then they show back up and you're like, oh my God, they showed back up. I should be so excited. And you fall right back into it and it becomes a cycle. So that's breadcrumb dating.
I have experienced breadcrumb dating and I know all about it. So, I think you answered this question, but how can we know? Because maybe some people don't realize they're in breadcrumb relationships. How can they know that they're in it?
That's such a great question. And for me to answer that, it's really about, you can tell by how you feel, right? If you don't feel good and you're not happy, you have to look at that and you have to go, it's not about the other person. It's about, what am I doing here? And what is it I'm actually participating in? Most of us aren't that self-aware that we're paying attention. Most of us are usually just blaming the other person. But you can tell, like, if you're breadcrumb dating somebody and they fall off the face of the earth and they show back up and they have all sorts of promises, you really have to look at that and go, this person is not consistent in how they show up. Why is that okay with me? And what kind of fantasy am I building from that? Because I guarantee that's what's happening. You've already got, oh, he's back or she's back. And boy, oh boy, I'm so excited. We're going to get married. I mean, like, people go right there. And it's really about staying in reality and going, okay, what is happening here? But more so, am I putting myself in a position where I feel like I'm chasing somebody? Am I putting myself in a position where I'm complaining all the time? You got to look at, how am I responding to this relationship that's going to give you a clue about if I'm happy or I'm not happy here.
You know what I love about this too is that I think you can have this in friendships too. Like it doesn't only have to be, because I'm very, if somebody's really inconsistent in friendship with me, I'm done. I don't like inconsistency if we're close friends. I don't care if we're not close friends.
Right.
And I sometimes will see that with certain things. I'm like, oh no, this isn't for me. It's okay if you want to be like this, but this doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
So do you feel that this can go in all different types of relationships? So I guess parents too. It could be with your parents.
Yeah. I was going to say that. Yeah. Mom and dad usually starts there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because you're used to it. Because on some level, let's put it this way. If you had not had anything like that as a kid, that's what I was talking about with attachment theory, that there's a consistency that's missing, right?
Yeah.
So you wouldn't seek it out. You wouldn't even bother with it. You'd go, this person's not showing up. I don't want to deal with this, whether whoever it is. And so, like I experienced that with my own parent. And I really see it, my father passed recently, and it's been really fascinating because I'm seeing my mother and I'm seeing how prevalent it is with her inconsistency still. Like it's amazing. And she's never going to get it. She's never going to change. She's just going to be who she is.
Yeah, I understand that. I understand that. So what can people do to start setting boundaries? And one, I want to break this in two parts, even though you said it, because for those who are not observant of it, is there a question they can start asking themselves to make themselves more observant of it?
Yeah, they can ask themselves, am I having fun? Because what it is, there's a difference. They may feel intensity. That is not fun. And they may feel like they're on a roller coaster. That is not fun to emotionally go through. I mean, if you're going to go on a roller coaster, go get on a physical one. But emotionally, you can tell, because am I high? Am I low? You can go, in the last 30 days, how much fun have I been having in this relationship? Because then you really look at it and you go, oh my God, probably 2 days, maybe an hour a day. I mean, you start to break it down and you realize you are paying such a huge cost to be in this relationship and get so little out of it. Another question you can ask too is, why do I feel exhausted? Because when you're in a relationship like that, you're giving, giving, giving. And so you're exhausting yourself. And it's to go, oh, wow, look at me. I'm people pleasing, or I'm trying to be perfect, or I keep strategizing to figure out how I can get more out of this person. Or maybe you're complaining all the time. So you can ask yourself these questions, and it's pretty clear. It's like, if I'm not having fun, what the heck am I doing here?
So you must get people though that say to you, yeah, but Tracy, when he's there, it's like, we're so in, like, it's everything. And then how do you deal with people? Like, how do you get them to break that pattern? Like,
that takes a while. And that's why I have programs, because it took me a while. Like, I didn't just discover, oh, look at what you're doing, Trace. It was a process, because your belief system is at the base of everything you do. So you get out of bed in the morning, you got to believe there's a floor there for your foot to hit, right? It's things like that, where it also impacts how you see relationships, how you see yourself, your own self-worth. And so you have to actually build up your self-worth to be able to get to a point where you go, this isn't really functional. And it's amazing when we're together, but it really isn't, because that veil sort of slips as you grow and you have more self-worth. You realize, this isn't that exciting hanging out with this person. It was all that intensity that I thought made it exciting, that we were having really deep conversations and all the other crap, because I've done it. And I used to believe that. Like, I thought, how will I ever live without this person in my life? We have these amazing moments. But being in a healthy relationship and looking back at that, it's just night and day. And I never in a million years thought I'd ever be able to get out of it.
Yeah. It's bringing up stuff. So let's talk about setting the boundaries. I think we've kind of talked about, or how you can really leave. Because the thing that's coming up for me as you're saying this is, I'm thinking about a relationship I was in, and it was definitely a breadcrumb relationship. And the intensity was still there, but I chose to walk away. Like, no matter what. So I'm assuming a lot of people still have that intense feeling. you still have that in those incredible, like, so this was a really sexually charged relationship as well.
Mhm.
And, but I was like, I'm done. I'm not going to be treated this way, and cut all ties off. But I still had to deal with the feelings that I had.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I know, and this is such a bummer. I had more than one relationship like that, by the way.
Me too, unfortunately.
And so, and when I got to that last one, literally I was walking down the street. Yeah, I was walking down the street and I heard from him and I just stood there and I'm like, oh my God, because I felt like I had this like steel umbilical cord, like this thing that just would not let go of me. And that was that moment I went, I've got to do something. Well, I was pretty cut off from myself emotionally. And so the deal is, and most people will find this advice a little weird, but I was very cut off and I realized that it was me emotionally. I was the common denominator in all these jacked up relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that there was probably something I was missing. And it was, oh yeah, hey, guess what? You need to deal with the emotions, not just emotional reactions of anxiety or anger or sadness. It's like, what's really going on a deeper level? And so I started to unpack that, because your emotions, when I was talking about the beliefs, so your emotions are basically how you got the beliefs. If you had an emotional reaction to something as a kid and it happened over and over again, it became a belief. You didn't have a belief unless it had an emotional reaction attached. So you have to be able to get to the emotional reactions, the emotional drive. Why am I here? What am I doing? So my advice is weird in that I don't tell people to run away fast. I say, see if you can stick it out, even though there's the adult part of your brain saying, get out, this is not healthy. If you want to resolve those issues, then having that situation happening and you growing and changing through it is great. But so many of us have so much fear of being consumed by it, or fear that we're never going to get out of it, or fear of how we feel bad the way we're being treated. And it really is about being able to change those beliefs and then change your patterns and feel a sense of well-being and leave. Like I look back on that relationship, like mine was like on and off for 6 years. It was a long time. And I kept thinking, even when I ended it, I thought, okay, I feel good, because I literally, like every time I wanted to break up, I'm like, no, Tracy, you are staying right here because you need to learn something. This thing isn't going away. And it's a pattern you have in relationships. You need to do something. And so it was really hard to stay there. And like I said, when I got to the last time, I was so done. Like I didn't feel emotionally vacant anymore. I didn't feel like if he called, like my stomach would drop. I didn't have any of those kind of feelings anymore, because I had grown myself to that degree. And even now, like I look back and I'm like, how did I think that that was amazing? Because it wasn't. Even the sex, like when you look at the sex, by the way, and you take the intensity off, it really wasn't that great, So it's really fascinating when you have that whole thing going on where you're like, oh my God, it's so amazing. But I know that feeling. I know that feeling of attachment, and it sucks.
What kind of questions can you ask yourself in the moment, or ask of yourself? Is there like one question in particular? I love the joy part. Like, am I having fun? But now I'm walking in it, say, I'm not in it, thank God. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to stay with it because I want to find out my belief systems. Is there like like, okay, where does this initiate? But I want to kind of try to, it must be hard because that's why you have to work with Tracy, because she drills it down and gets to know the person. But is there anything, or a boundary that you could put up, or I love myself more, or anything that you could do while you're walking through it?
There's a lot of things that you can do. I mean, a ton, but you speak to boundaries. And so I can talk to that briefly.
Yeah.
Well, most of us think boundaries are how someone else treats us. But if you're not treating yourself that way, having an expectation that someone else is going to treat you in the way you want to be treated, it doesn't work. It's like, if you want love, then you got to treat yourself with love. You want respect, you got to be respectful. And so it's really difficult. But one of the things you can do is look at, do my words, actions, and feelings match, my intention? If I'm saying I'm going to be respectful, are my words respectful of me? Are my actions respectful of me? Are my feelings respectful of me? Or am I just feeling crappy and I'm on autopilot and I'm acting in ways because I'm too afraid of abandonment by this person that I can't let go of it? And so, it's not to shame yourself or make yourself into what is wrong with me. It's more to recognize, if I can't hold a boundary, then I need to really do some deeper work on getting to what are the obstacles, what are the fear-based, beliefs that I have that stand in the way of it. And it's hard work. It's painful, because that's the other thing. Most of us would just shove the pain down rather than let the pain out. And that's a big part, I think, of what makes us like a magnet to relationships like this, because that person's in pain too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then, so now, okay, so you're out of the relationship, you did the work, and then all of a sudden one comes down the pike and it's doing a breadcrumb thing again. What do you tell your people to do?
So it depends on where they are, because some people are in a lot of fear. So here's the easiest thing to do. Stay in the moment in reality. Because if I'm in the moment in reality and I'm not building a fantasy like, oh my God, here's my prince, you're going to feel differently. You're going to feel disappointed is what you're going to feel. Yeah. And you have to deal with it, because all of this stuff is to avoid disappointment in the first place. So you got to deal with it. And that's probably the easiest thing to do.
It's so funny. I didn't know about any of this, and I love hearing this, and thank you for the confirmation, because when I moved here, I met a guy. There was that sexual attraction again, playing tennis, real exciting. And I purposely observed. I said, I'm staying in observation. I'm going to watch this one. I'm doing this one slow. I'm not, because I could have easily it could have happened. And I'll never forget that he did something and everything came to light. And this would have been a horrible choice of a person, absolutely horrible. And in an instant, I was so proud of myself. All those feelings went away, because
Nice.
I stayed in the reality. I stayed in the moment, and I saw it for what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, so that's how you do it. So everything you said, I agree with completely.
Yes. And there's one other thing too that you can do too, is that, when you're out there and you decide you're open to dating, and it's really about being open and being connected to yourself emotionally. A lot of us aren't connected enough to ourselves, right? We're so connected to other people. What are they doing? What about them? Instead of, wait a minute, how do I feel? And can I be open and just share myself authentically with other people? That was one of the things that I did about 8 months before I met my husband. Even though I've been coaching people, I realized I had this huge wall. Like, I was having a good time being single, as far as my life was great. My business was great. Like, I didn't have any complaints, but I'm like, I want to have a relationship. But I really realized how much fear I still had. And so I had to work through, number one, I hated dating. Dating was like the worst thing in the world to me. Like, how boring and what a waste of time. In fact, I was busy having dates, and like this one guy, I literally ran to my car to get away. Okay. So that's like, I don't want to do this. But the point I came to was, I do want to do this, and I was willing to face my fears. And one of the things that helped me, besides really being open and available, was to be curious. So I took dating as more of, can I be curious about how I show up? Like, if I'm on a date and I start talking to somebody, am I talking to get a second date, or am I being real? If I'm being real, I'm talking about something, I'm engaged, I'm having fun, great. But if I'm doing this, I'm trying to manipulate the guy or get him to see me in some way, that's when we always feel disappointed and crappy after a date. Like, oh, that wasn't great, because we're not looking at it from being curious. And so being curious really helped me to make dating fun, and also being very open about whatever. Like, hey, this has been my track record with relationships. I've pretty much sucked at them. And, but I've done a lot of work, and I'm still a work in progress. But I would say things like that. And the quality of men I met was so much better. Like, it kept improving all the time.
I also think it's a safer way. Like, you feel more safe in that kind of a setup, because you are being more grounded in yourself and curious. And I don't know, it just feels better that way.
Yeah, it is.
It's a great thing. I want to bring up I love everything Tracy's saying, because I'm relating a lot to it in my own life. And I remember meeting a guy on the tennis court, and I could tell right away. I have a history of drug addicts and alcoholics that I usually date, and I'm done with that, and I could tell this guy had that energy, that vibration. And I could tell he was interested, and I literally ran off the court and called a friend of mine who's very unhealthy in relationships. And she's like, why'd you run away? And I was like, because I'm done with that type. But the thing that I have to be careful of, and the thing that I'm opening up to, is just because I have to trust myself. Like, running off of the court. I know you're going to have something to say to this, which I'd love to hear. But also what you said about dating with your own husband, I'm looking at it as just a curiosity, having fun, sitting in observation. It doesn't have to be the man. So I would love to hear what you have to say, and then what with that. But
Sure.
yeah,
You said the magic words though. So what we do is we often have rules. We
yes.
don't know what our rules are. And this is the thing I was actually thinking about. So I did a workshop called Save Your Shitty Relationship. And so I can share that with, I'll give that to you and you can share it.
Oh,
And
thank you.
yeah, because in it, I talk about, so you have a belief here, you have a rule here, a story, pattern, evidence, okay? And it goes in a loop, right? So if I have a belief that's not a great belief about myself, like I'm going to be alone, because that's a lot of us. I'm going to be alone. That was mine. I'm going to be alone. And that was because I always felt alone. And so I have a rule. So your rule is I can, I shouldn't, I will, I won't. Those are the things that you'll hear yourself saying. So if you're alone and you're single and you go, I can't date men that are 4'2", then maybe you say, I can date men that are 4'2". Like you have to look at why you have rules, because they're all about how much you do or do not trust yourself.
Yes.
The more rules, yes, the more rules you have, forget trusting yourself, and you got to break them. Say, yes.
Keep going.
Okay. So then when you have the rules, you have the word because that's in there. I can't date men that are 4'2" because, and then that's the story that's on top of the rules. Okay. And that's the blah, 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 all the excuses, all the reasons. Okay. And so what we tend to do is we go, I can't understand why I'm alone. And we don't hear these rules, and then the stories that follow, and then the patterns that keep them in place that gives us the evidence that, oh my God, I'm alone. So it's like this loop that we just stay stuck in. And so at any point of rule, story, or pattern, you break any of those, you can start to change things. But most of us are too based in fear of what's going to happen. I can't trust myself. I'm going to be engulfed. I'm not going to, be able to handle this. And so we stay stuck at that level of rules.
Love that. So I want to ask a follow-up question with that, and I'm going to take another question.
Yeah.
So I agree with everything you're saying, and I could feel it even in myself, loosening up and all of that, and where the patterns were, and even it's just I really love that. But so my question to you is, knowing that I attract alcoholics and or used to attract alcoholics and drug addicts, so it is a rule, I'm not going to date an alcoholic or a drug addict no matter what. How do you make sure you're not going into a cycle or a loop? Like, I trust myself enough to choose, but maybe there's a pattern there or fear there or something I'm watching out for. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. If you're usually watching out for, if the man's an alcoholic or a drug addict, let's say, you have to look at, what is my point of attraction? Like, this is a lot about self-awareness,
Fixing
right?
people.
Yeah. And so it's, what is a need that I have, not just mentally knowing I got to fix people, but what's the feeling inside of me? You got to feel your feelings. If you don't feel your feelings, you're not connected to yourself. So the more you dig in and you go, wow, I'm feeling anxious, like probably meeting somebody who's an alcoholic or a drug addict, your first inclination, like you ran off the court, there's probably anxiety there.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. So you notice that and you go, where's the anxiety coming from? See, instead of going out here, you're going in here. And the more you do that, you learn to build a relationship with yourself, that you trust yourself, that wherever you show up, you're going to be able to deal with it. And things will come out of your mouth that you would have never said in a million years before that.
Love that, Tracy. Thank you. Very, very good. I love using myself as a guinea pig here. For me personally, everything is Tracy saying, the more I get to know myself, the more I know myself really well, and I can communicate that, the better, the richer the relationships are. And I'm not looking to avoid, or I need to be independent. I trust myself enough to communicate in the moment that something is uncomfortable. I've been hanging out with a lot of men. Like, that's my thing here. And it's not even, it just seems to be happening because I'm opening it. And it's been a lot of fun to just hang out with men, play tennis. And I love men, actually. But really working on my own personal dating issues in that kind of atmosphere has been so beneficial for me. It's been really great. And hearing everything you're saying, I could see how I'm working on dissolving those patterns in myself too.
Yeah. And then, it's so funny too, because then when you do find a relationship, it's really fascinating because you see yourself and you're like, I am not the person I used to be, and because
Yeah.
you're relating in different ways. And to me, it's all about being emotionally available and open when you need space. I don't need space to think. I'm a creative also, and I am busy a lot of the time. I work a lot. And the thing is that I know I can bury myself in it, and it's a comfort zone. And so that's what you want to be aware of, because there's also this feeling too when you have attachment issues, and I don't know why this is. There's probably a study somewhere. We always feel like time is limited because we have this thing about limited resources.
Mm.
So time being one of them. So if I don't get to spend all this time by myself, formulating, creating, doing whatever, there may not be enough time. But the truth is, when you live in this flow of allowing, right? Allowing is being open, not controlling everything around you, and a lot of us find ourselves doing this, but not controlling things. And you kind of live in this flow, you realize that there's enough time for everything. There really is. And so you don't have to be so possessive of your time. You can be open, and you find you still get the same amount of stuff done.
But really, thank you so much. Is there any closing remarks that you want to leave us with, or anything that you want to share with us here?
I would basically just say, the greatest journey is to oneself, right? I mean, getting to know who you are in that relationship. And the more you take a deep dive into that, it makes you safe anywhere in the world, basically. I mean, unless there's a bomb going off or a tiger chasing you. But it really gives you a sense of confidence and comfort, and knowing that wherever you go, you can trust this person to take care of you. And to me, that's like the best gift ever.
I agree with that 100%. Because as you're talking about all these dates, I'm remembering a date I ran away from, or this I ran away from. And my old MO used to be like, it's their fault. Like my way to take care of myself is to be angry. Like, how dare that guy? Or if a guy had a big crush on me and it was too invasive, and now I don't, like, I agree with everything you're saying. Like, everything starts and ends with me.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I feel. I hope I'm hearing you right as I
Yes.
repeat this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Because, that's one of the things really quick that I would say in my relationship, that we don't fight a lot. And if we do, it's really short, and it's not you did this or you did that. And if it were to even go there, it's, whoa, I'm triggered. Me personally, I'm triggered. I need to figure out why. Like, that's my responsibility. It's not your responsibility to figure out why I'm triggered. And then if I take responsibility for it and I do a deep dive and I go, what's going on with me? It's usually some past shit that's not happening now. And then it's an opportunity for me to grow. And then I become a better partner, not just to my husband, but to myself too.
Well, that also helped you pick a better partner too, because you had such a great dialogue with yourself, and you really knew yourself very well, which is what you said too, correct?
Yes. But it's just interesting because, when you get triggered, you're in a state of reaction, right? And you're like, okay, something's taken over here. But I usually catch myself pretty quickly. But it's just nice to not have a relationship where, a lot of people choose sides, right? It's you're against the other person rather than for the other person.
Yeah. Wow. Do you do relationship coaching too?
I do.
Yeah.
I try to do it with individuals first. And I say that because a lot of times when you get into relationship coaching, people want to compromise, and it's really, no, you don't want to compromise until you know what you're compromising, because you're probably going to be angry and resentful that you're compromising.
So friggin' true. That's a whole other topic that we can talk about. Wow.
Yeah, definitely.
Wow. So everybody check out Tracy. I put her websites in here, and as you know, and her podcast as well. We'll be in touch with Tracy and see if there's anything further she could do with membership, but she's very busy and stuff, but really go to her sites and check them out, and we'll send them out in the email, and just, damn, jump on it, everybody.
Thank you.
That was really amazing, Tracy. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I've really enjoyed being here, and I loved answering everybody's questions. It's like my favorite thing to do. So thank you.